Tonight I'm coming to you from Chillicothe, Ohio. That is, of course, what we refer to as a joke lie. This is Las Vegas, and the one place that I always have to go when I'm in town, other than Dottie's Casino, hashtag not sponsored, hashtag but I'm willing to talk, it's the Pinball Hall of Fame, a suitably understated place here along the Strip. I went in to discuss with proprietor Tim Arnold some of the history behind this place and some of the other things that he's done.
You're in my secret laboratory right now, but the rest of the facility is 3 times larger than our old place, which was twice as big as our first place. We're going to spend the next few years trying to bring in more old stuff, refine the product we've got. COVID kicked our ass in every conceivable way. I'm still having problems getting things I need to run this place. Toilet paper, orange soda, pinball parts, you name it, I can't get it. Traffic has been very good here. I can't complain about not having customers, so I guess I should just shut my yap and be happy.
Hey folks, it's Eric the Edit Guy. I know I look a lot like Eric the Story Guy, but it's totally different. Don't really have time to explain right now. Just want to let you know this is not going to be a video about the Pinball Hall of Fame. I have nothing against the place. I love the place. I go to it every time I'm in Vegas. A number of people have made videos about the place, and I just didn't see the need to duplicate their effort. It's not the story I want to tell. I mean, not me, obviously. I'm the edit guy, not the story guy. But the point is, the Pinball Hall of Fame is not the way that I met Tim.
All over the Pinball Hall of Fame was this handwriting, which was immediately familiar to me because it also decorated most of the video and pinball machines I played in high school. And yeah, there's a reason for that.
So I was drifting around in community college, not happy. So I decided I was going to take a semester off and try to open a pinball arcade. Was there 89 days, and every conceivable thing that could have gone wrong did. We got held up, we signed the wrong lease, another arcade opened right across the street from us, the police hated us, the community hated us, the kids hated us, so I was really dejected. It was the end of the summer. I was having to go back to community college in the fall when there was an arcade in East Lansing, not in the actual town, but in the township outside where the bars were. East Lansing used to be dry, so if you wanted to drink, you had to go outside the city limits into the township, and there was a little cluster of bars there, including a big rock and roll bar, and they had an empty space. Used to be a drive-in restaurant next to the bar, and the owner knew my brother's boss, and my brother's boss put in a word for us, and we got to rent the place for $300 a month. So we moved in there September 1st of '76. Decided to call it Pinball Pete's. Outgrew that place rapidly, found a basement space in East Lansing right downtown. At this point, East Lansing had gone wet, and there were a whole bunch of bars, 22 of them, within walking distance of our front door. The landlord didn't want to mess with the basement, so he made us a great deal on it. My little brother is still running that arcade in the basement in 2022, so that's some kind of a record for an arcade. And then we expanded to 2 more in Lansing, and then we bought out an operator in Ann Arbor that had Mickey Rats and Cross-Eyed Moose and Tommy's Holiday Camp. My little brother and another partner went down there and wrestled those all into shape, changed them all over to Pinball Pete's. When I left to come out here in 1990, there were 7 Pinball Pete's. Now, because of lease problems and gentrification of Ann Arbor, we're down to 2, both of them in basements, one in Ann Arbor and one in East Lansing.
But that still wasn't my first introduction to this guy. At some point around 1979, Ann Arbor Community Access Television started showing tapes of a call-in game show from a place they referred to as Eat Lansing. Now, this show was rinky-dink and lo-fi even for the standards of 70s community access, and it was hosted by a local eccentric in a Groucho Marx mask who asked TV trivia questions and hurled verbal abuse at the callers. Most of the time, the proportions went the other way.
Give me another hand. No more hands, kid. Hey, have you sent in for your free stuff yet? Yep. You did? Yep. Did you get it in the mail yet? No. No. Why not? Because I didn't send it in yet. Oh, you haven't sent it in yet. Well, this calendar, you can see the little seal, has been approved by all the Brady kids. So, folks, if you want, lose this kid. He's too incredibly stupid to deal with. Listen, folks, if you have the IQ of this baby doll with no head, don't bother to call the show, okay?
Hey, me again. Did I mention that the man in the rubber mask was Tim? Probably shouldn't have left that out. Okay, back to the thing.
A standard question he asked in every episode was, at any time in this or any other world, has there ever been a funny episode of My Three Sons? If you've been looking through my Instagram feed, that explains the souvenir coin that I stamped at the Pinball Hall of Fame. Now, if you answered yes, or if you mealy-mouthed something like, probably, or that's just someone's judgment, man, that would launch a tirade of TV-safe hostility. One of the special bonus questions that Tim offered was called the blow-up bonanza. He had a tape of 3 items. These would be something like a Happy Meal, a seltzer bottle, and a remote control. Now, one of those items was going to blow up. The caller had to guess which one of the items it was. And because it usually took time for the tape to play through to the explosion, the caller would have to sing the theme to Bonanza. Now, sometimes the caller's energy was off and the segment misfired in every way, except for literally. But if the contestant gave an enthusiastic, off-key performance while waiting for a box of store-brand cup of soup to explode, well, paradise found.
You got to remember that before there was YouTube, no one had access to the media. If you wanted to do anything creative with film, it was immensely expensive, time-consuming. If you wanted to do things on video, it was $28 for a half hour of tape, and that was in 1970s dollars. When they started opening up cable systems all over the place, part of the deal was that they were going to allow people to use one channel on that system, and they could put on community shows, you know, boring Yoo-hoo, whatever, public affairs shows, and every town had a public access channel. And I decided that this would be kind of fun because I always wanted to have my own TV show, and here was a way I could do it for free. So I decided that I was going to do a quiz show, but because I was running the pinball arcades and I didn't want people harassing me at work, I didn't want to use this face. So I went out and got a rubber mask and decided to rip off Groucho Marx's routine. I decided just for laughs I was going to do this. And it ended up turning into a 22, 23-year project. And then I started bicycling the tapes around. Before there was satellites that you could afford and the internet and YouTube and all that stuff, you used to have to send tapes to TV stations and they would plug them into a machine and play them. Then they would send them to the next station, who would send them to the next station. I had hundreds of shows on used 3/4-inch U-matic tapes that I would pick up for $3 or $4 each. And I didn't really care if I ever got them back. I just thought it'd be kind of neat to see how many places I could get this stupid rinky-dink TV show on the air. So at one point, I was passing 1% of America's homes.
In 1988 or so, Tim hosted a handful of shows at the Ann Arbor Community Access Station. Now, given the station was one of my various hangs, how did I have so much energy then? I was much too broke to afford real drugs. I was pressed into service as Sloucho's nubile young assistant. A handful of years later, I think I even asked for permission, but I'm not under oath here. I stole the game format outright, and I started hosting episodes of the show myself with my friend Sarah as my sidekick. Casual viewing might lead you to think that she was the gentle, relatable one, But as soon as callers started getting peppery at us, they quickly learned that appearances can be deceptive. Ultimately, Sarah would get her degree, and then she proceeded to move away to start leading what I'm led to understand is called a post-college life. But I wasn't done with the show yet, and I started making more episodes in 1995. The sidekicks around were my friends Danny and Alex, and I think John might have been there too. It's hard to remember because the four of us all produced our own stuff, and we typically popped up in the other stuff too. And in one of the greatest scams ever perpetrated against academia, I actually produced the 1995 summer season as an independent study. I got real college credit from a prestigious university by spraying silly string, insulting strangers, and blowing up toys. God bless America. And now when I look at my expensive maize and blue diploma on the wall, I can't help but think of all the hard work it represents, as well as a small measure of just f***ing around. And I actually started upping production values. The game board had once been a long strand of taped together construction paper pulled over one of the rungs of a ladder as a sort of really ineffective pulley. So at first, I used the station's titling machine to display the questions, but ultimately a friend of mine wrote a HyperCard stack. Yeah, HyperCard, I did mention this was a long time ago. And that HyperCard stack served as the game board software. My single biggest expenditure, besides the 33 megahertz Mac Performa 636, which I had already, was the scan converter that took the computer's VGA output and produced an NTSC signal that I could run into the station switcher. Yeah, that was the stuff we had to worry about in the analog standard definition days. My friend Danny, who is brilliant and off, started producing our blow-up Bonanza pre-tapes. When I was making them, I stuck close to what Tim had been doing. My 3 items would be things like a ceramic vase, a box of off-brand cornflakes, and a bottle of prescription cough syrup. But when Danny took over, a typical blow-up Bonanza could consist of a time bomb, a dangerously malfunctioning robot, and Simon the Panda's second birthday party, which was attended by all of his stuffed animal friends. And suffice to say, that birthday cake was stuffed with gunpowder. Inevitably, I also graduated, and adult people concerned started taking up my attention. But there was one more attempt. I still had friends with the university's College Bowl that they couldn't legally call College Bowl, and they agreed to let me mooch their buzzer system for a couple of days. So I had contestant buzzers, I had game presentation software. My day job for a campus cable channel meant that I had use of remote cameras. All I needed was a venue and a crowd. So I made arrangements with a place called Not Another Cafe, because it was the 90s and we were all edgy and crap. Their response landed about halfway between sure and were. Now that puzzled me, and then a week later when they closed their doors, it became all the more clear. And that was the end.
It was a hoot. Don't regret doing it. Made a lot of friends in a lot of places. Met my wife through that TV show. Still in constant contact with a lot of people who used to be in the fan organization. So yeah, it was like bowling night, only more famous. One of the funnest things I ever did. Never made a nickel off it. Cost me a lot of money running the fan organization, but stamps were cheap back then.
I'd like to try again, but these days it's a very different landscape. Low-cost production is so easy that even I can do it, but the real game changer came in the form of distribution. With the various online platforms like Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitch, it has never been so easy to broadcast to the world and not have to worry about the constraints of the limited viewing area of a single city's cable system. Even though it was already possible to use a search engine in 1995, that was nothing like the ever-present availability of Google today, which makes it all the more difficult to run a quiz with people watching from home. But what about in person? Maybe. Bars are beginning to offer trivia nights again. Maybe we could be an opening act? Maybe.
See, that's where I should have done a call to action. If you're in charge of an eatery or drinkery in the greater Detroit or Toledo areas and you'd like a fun event that sets you apart from the competition, please drop a line to blah, 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 blah. Man, am I rusty. I probably would also do Jackson. Lansing or Kalamazoo, maybe, but you'd have to feed us. Columbus?